Good evening. Welcome to our 8th annual Carl and Marjorie Hertz Lecture on Emerging Issues in Agriculture. My name is Joe Coletti. I have the privilege of serving the College of Ag and Life Sciences as the interim dean and the interim director of the experiment station. Well, this lecture series was created in memory of the founders of the Hertz Farm Management, and it was to create and inspire an inspiration for future generations of the industry leaders, research scientists, and young professionals to help them reach their full potential. Both Carl and Marjorie were graduates of Iowa State University. They farmed near Nevada. I am from California, so I have a hard time still with Nevada versus Nevada. I apologize. But Nevada, and Carl's consulting work led to the founding of Hertz Farm Management in 1946. The company has really grown to one of the most respected and largest farm management, real estate, and rural appraisal firms in the United States. And it's right in our backyard. A special welcome is at this time appropriate for members of the Hertz family and members of the company that are with us tonight. I would ask if all members of the Hertz family and the company would stand so we could recognize and thank you. Tonight's speaker is Miss Amy Asmus, who will speak on the topic of what is possible, advancing agriculture through AGvocacy, partnerships, and collaboration. If you notice, I stumbled over that word. It's really not advocacy, but it's AGvocacy, and I think, Amy, you'll help us really dig into what you're thinking about there. Amy and her husband, Harlan, run another great Iowa family business, the Asmus Farm Supply, that's based in Rake, Iowa. They were recently named at an event out in Arizona, I believe, as the 2017 National Retailer of the Year by the Agricultural Retailers Association. Amy happens to be a certified crop advisor and is a known leader in the field. She's a member of the board of directors at the Agricultural Retailers Association and previously served on the executive committee of the International Certified Crop Advisors Board. A native of Walcott and an Iowa State graduate, Amy serves as a member of the Environmental Protection Agency's Pesticide Program Dialogue Committee and the Weed Science Society of America's Herbicide Resistance Education Committee. So she's got connections that really reach out to all of the United States. She is a partner in Secure Tracks, a business which is helping retailers comply with Environmental Protection Agency repackaging and tank tracking requirements. Well, she comes from a family that's a cyclone family through and through. Amy and her husband, Harlan, were recognized as the 2017 Emerging Philanthropists of Iowa State University Foundation. Their philanthropy for the university includes this program called Into the Field, and it's an effort to support agriculture by creating a partnership between industry and academics to create well-rounded agronomic professionals who will set the future course for all of agriculture. Harlan is also a graduate of Iowa State, and their 3 children, Aaron, Holden, and Garrett. And I think that Holden and Garrett are here in the audience tonight with us. And what I'd like to do is ask Amy and your family, for all of your members of your family, to stand to be recognized at this time as well. Well, also join me in welcoming Amy Asmus to the podium for her presentation. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Dean Coletti, for inviting me to speak along with the Hertz family. I really am kind of excited to speak here this evening, and I trust you'll enjoy my story and you'll enjoy what I have to say as my message. Special thank you goes out to the Hertz family as well. I admire your dedication to ag and your involvement in the sustainability of your landowners' assets and your growers' ability to farm that asset sustainably. The work you do in the industry is truly noteworthy. Thank you. And thank you for sponsoring this lectureship. I think this is the 8th year, and you've given this audience here a chance to delve into some of the emerging issues in ag, as you've given the audiences in the last 7 years that chance too. Thank you. Great thing. Another special thank you goes out to my family, to my husband Harlan, who is there to support me now and anywhere this leads me, because he never knows what I'm going to do next. So it's a good thing he's there. I also want to thank Garrett, and he's laughing at me, and Holden's wife Billy for being here. They chose to come and support me. Also here is my husband's mother, Carol, and her husband, Warren, and my parents, Chuck and Sandy Bramstead. And I just want to say, us as children, we grow up, we move out of the house, we become parents of our own, we become grandparents. Yes, I became a grandparent for the first time 6 weeks ago, and you know what? It's still pretty cool when your parents come to your events. So thank you very much for making it here and coming. There are many others in this room that have supported me through my path through ag, and too many to mention. But I trust that you all know who you are, and you know that I truly appreciate what you've done. You may have heard in Dean Coletti's, although I don't think he said it. Did you say it? I wasn't paying attention. I graduated from Iowa State University in 1987 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in graphic design. Yeah, that is my only formal college degree. No, you don't need to check if you're in the wrong auditorium. It is true. A graphic designer is presenting the Hertz lecture on emerging issues in ag. I know a lot of you in the audience are current students, although there's not all that many students here yet. My guess is they'll show up in about 5 minutes, right? So most of you are probably students in the College of Ag and Life Sciences, or in the College of Liberal Arts and Science studying ag business or ag economics. If you are studying something outside of those two colleges, could you raise your hand? There's a couple of them here. That's awesome. So can I push my luck? Is anybody from the College of Design? Woo! We stick together even if I turn my back on them, right? This is great. So now I'm going to ask another question. And it's a question that we in ag ask a lot, and a question that we really need to stop asking. Dr. Kendall Lamke, who's been a big part of my journey from the College of Design to the stage before you tonight, will be disappointed that I even uttered this question, but I will. How many of you, whether you're a student or not, grew up on a farm? Raise your hands high. A lot of you. Do you think it helped you to get to where you are right now? Yeah, a lot of you think it is. Well, guess what? You're in the audience and I'm up here. And guess what? You all know what I'm going to say. I did not grow up on a farm. I had a cornfield in my backyard. I baled hay with my brothers once or twice. I hated that. DuPont Pioneer would bring this big school bus up to the school, and you could get on the bus and you could help them detassel corn. It was good money. I hated that too. But despite of being a town girl who went to ISU and majored in design, here I am. asked by one of the most prestigious families in farm management to speak to students, faculty, and the public at one of the most prestigious ag universities about emerging issues in ag. I am proof that anyone in this room, student or not, no matter the background you bring to the table, can become or do anything you set your mind to. So how did I get into ag? How did I get on the list of respected ag leaders? First of all, I met this boy in college. We kind of hit it off pretty well. By the time we were both ready to graduate, we decided to get married. The thing was, his family owned an ag retail business, and we were moving back to his hometown. His hometown in the middle of pretty much nowhere, northern Iowa. We got married, moved to Rake. I had a degree in graphic design, so I went to the local newspaper and I got a job. Well, not much creativity in that job, pasting up a local newspaper, same form they've been using forever, and it wasn't likely to change in the near future. A few years after very little creativity, I decided to go back to school. I was going to get a teaching certificate so I could teach art in the school, because in the middle of nowhere, if you didn't know where to get a job, you got one at the school, right? A couple of weeks after the semester started, I found out that Harlan and I were expecting our first child. So I finished that semester and decided to stay home and raise beautiful children. That was the end of my professional graphic design work, but don't get me wrong, I still use graphic design as a background when I create my quilts and when I carry on and do personal little art projects. As you will hear in a bit, I consider my training in creativity to be a very important part of who I am today. I had started making friends in the very small community of Rake and surrounding communities. How, do you ask? Through ISU Extension. When Harlan and I first moved back, Harlan received a call from the local Extension office asking if he'd consider to be on Extension Council. Well, he was just back home and working very hard to learn everything he needed to learn to become a successful part of his father's ag retail business. But I was stuck in a new place with not really much of an outlet to meet people our age, and that was not acceptable. So I called back to the Extension office and I told them that Harlan was going to focus his time on the business and didn't think he would take the opportunity at this time to serve on Extension Council. But I asked, what kind of person are you looking for? Would an imported graphic designer do? Well, I found out they would basically take anybody who was interested. And so I did. And that was a great opportunity. I was plugged into the family of ISU Extension. I was learning things. I was helping kids in 4-H as a judge and a leader. And I still judge photography at the state fair. Educate, evaluate, and encourage. I'll say that again. Educate, evaluate, and encourage. Those are great words to remember when you're judging a 4-H project, and they're great words to remember throughout life. Through my time as a volunteer with Extension, I filled leadership roles in the Corn and Soybean Initiative and on the first elected board for the Iowa Association of County Extension Councils. I also started writing for 2 of their newsletters, the Network newsletter and the Connections newsletter. Who knew at that time that Iowa State Extension would help me see what was possible from a small town in the middle of nowhere, northern Iowa? There's something that played a large role in my life and getting me here today. and that's being a lifelong learner. Learning what you need to know to be successful in the life you choose does not stop when you graduate. I know, it's an innovative statement, right? Well, probably not. But one of the emerging issues in ag that I want to touch just briefly on is funding cuts to extension programs at the land-grant universities. How did I learn what I needed to learn to be successful in the ag industry today? Extension programs. I know you're all asking, shaking your heads and shaking those little computers we hold in our hands at me. But remember, when I graduated, the internet was a baby. And even today, with the internet at our fingertips 24/7, extension material means what? Unbiased, scientifically researched information. I believe that cutting this funding to access to scientific information we can all use is simply not acceptable. In this world of emotionally driven arguments for or against most of the practices we incorporate today, sound scientific research is what we need to consider and to act upon. We need to, as individuals and as a society, support and advocate for funding in basic and applied research, so we can make our decisions on production and sustainable practices based on sound research. With access to information like this, who knows what is possible in the future? We need to support research at the university level, but also at the inputs level. What do I mean? As we work together throughout our lives with producers and retailers and input manufacturers, I want you to all choose to support those that support you and your passion. And I mean not in a short-term economic sense. I mean that in a long-term research and development sense. Ask the questions. Is my purchase of this product going to help the future of ag by working for me with research and development? Are my partners that I support exploring what is possible in the future and providing research and tools to move us towards that? Before I get too far ahead of myself, let's briefly get back to my background in graphics. I'm a visual kind of gal, and I needed something to gift you other than my words tonight. So I have some poker chips, and the gals from the foundation will be handing those out for all of you. No, I did not choose poker chips as a symbol of me all betting on your success in life. I chose poker chips for two different reasons. The first one is they're small and easy, and you can take my message with you in your pocket or purse as a reminder of the two questions we should always ask ourselves when exploring solutions. Second reason I choose the poker chips, somebody else already had them made, so it was easy. A good friend of ours, Paul Batts, founder and CEO of Good Leadership Enterprises, is an executive leader coach, and he happened to already have the poker chips created for use in his coaching. His message is a little different around them but mine, but it was a win-win. We got an easy visual you can take with you, and his business gets a little bit of publicity. On one side of the chip is printed what is not acceptable. You've heard me already say that a few times during my talk. It is a good question to ask when you are evaluating whether there is an issue, so that your answer may highlight what areas to steer clear of as you work for a solution. The other side is printed with what is possible. This question can serve to push your thoughts outside the box of ideas and tools that we currently have available. As I continue through my story here tonight, I'll point out what is not acceptable and what is possible. Speaking of not acceptable, my husband, he's a little better at his fitness routine than I am. And we all know we have to take care of ourselves. But every other day, he goes to the basement and uses the elliptical machine for a 20-minute workout. To pass the time, he'll watch various TED Talks. And we all love TED Talks, don't we? I mean, they're the best. So he came up the other day and told me that I might want to consider watching one of the talks that he saw that morning entitled, "Do Schools Squash Creativity?" It was given by Sir Ken Robinson. So I followed Harlan's advice and watched it. Basically, his message was this, that in schools today we focus on STEM programs, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and the programs that unfortunately get cut when funding is scarce are the creative arts, art, music, and drama. But not only are the arts not always supported in the school, but the concept of creativity is actually squashed by making them out to be expendable when compared to the sciences. Sir Robinson's point basically was, if we're going to succeed, we need to bring creativity and those innovative thought processes into our toolbox. Why was it he believed creativity is so important? Well, because the newest and best technology that we can teach today changes tomorrow. We need to create the technology of tomorrow with innovative solutions to address the emerging issues that we face now and in the future. For example, the traditional freshman at ISU has 47 years till retirement. They come in at 18 to 19 years old and they'll retire about 65, 66. That gets us to the year 2065. I personally love this year. And if I happen to still be around in 2065, I will be 100 years old. Back on March 13th in 1984, 34 years ago, and the year I was a freshman here at Iowa State University, somebody plunked down $3,995 to buy the Motorola Dynatac 8000X. It was the first handheld cell phone. Let's look how technology has blossomed from there, slowly at first, and then picking up speed. That first phone made calls and received calls. That's it. I didn't own my first bag phone until the year 1994, 10 years later. And even then, the phone was good for making phone calls and receiving phone calls. My phone today does not come with its own suitcase. It's a handheld computer, complete with a portable camera. Oh yeah, and if you choose to use it this way, it makes and receives phone calls. The speed of technology seems to keep getting faster and faster. Not only can we hold a powerful computer in our hands, there are sprayers that can be programmed for variable rate applications. There are tractors that can drive themselves. There are satellite and plane and drone images that can tell us at any given time the health of our crops. I cannot even begin to know what the possibility of our toolkit will be in the year 2065. But I do know it will still need people. People to choose the right tool to solve the problems we face. We cannot discount our toolkit of people skills, conceptual skills, judgment, and characters that help us succeed in finding new opportunities and reframing those issues we will face as agriculture grows in the future. We need to identify what is not acceptable and work together creatively to discover what is possible. Let's get back to my story. The family business was growing. We had hired our first agronomist outside the family. I helped out where I could with the business, but I didn't really know agriculture. I needed to learn in order to become effective at helping the business and our customers. By this time, I had 3 children. I was busy with family, community, and the business, and I didn't have time to go back to school to learn agronomy. So I looked into alternative ways to learn what I needed to know. That was when I became interested in the Certified Crop Advisors program. They provided a set of performance objectives that the program decided any agronomist should know in order to become certified. So I set out with this set of performance objectives, and I was determined that I was going to learn all of them and become a certified crop advisor. I soon realized I needed help. I needed help bad. So I went back to my friends at ISU Extension. They had put together a set of VHS tapes. For you young people in here, remember the speed of technology that I told you about. I watched them all several times. I found that I enjoyed learning about some topics, and other topics were tougher for me to care about and learn. I'm sure that you all have found that in your classes and through life as well. Soils. I found that topic right up there with baling hay and detasseling corn. I actually bought a treadmill to walk on to keep me awake as I studied soils. Okay, as I explore more and as I advocate more in the area of sustainability, I'm glad I worked hard to understand soils, but picture this: Jerry Miller, talking head video, taped of him doing an overhead presentation on the ICN system. Nothing like the YouTube videos of today, let me tell you. I also supplemented the information when I didn't understand things from the videos with other extension materials and classes. I remember fondly the herbicide physiology class that Mike Owen and Bob Hartzler taught. It was pretty advanced, 2-day workshop. I must have taken it about 3 years in a row just to figure out all that I needed to figure out. Mike thought I was crazy. But he taught me lots without even knowing how important he was in my quest for learning. I also formed many long-lasting relationships as I learned what I needed to know from other people in the industry and fellow agronomists. The day finally came. I took the test to see what I had learned, and guess what? I failed the state test. I was not acceptable. But lo and behold, I passed the international test. So I knew that success was possible. I continued to learn, and by the next time they offered the test, I was able to pass the state test. I had some experience, but worked with the customers at Asmus Farm Supply in order to get the 4 years they required of an agronomist that did not have an agronomy degree. Through all of this, with the help of my network, I was able to achieve my goal without leaving my family and heading back to college. This is my story, and I'm not saying that getting a degree in agronomy is not necessary. In fact, even today, I miss not learning everything that I would have learned if I had taken all of the agronomy classes. But some of the experiences I was afforded while learning this unconventional way really shaped my career. One of the very special people I've invited to join us tonight is Darren Mueller, and he's not even asleep yet. He told me he's going to fall asleep. He probably thought he was just being inclusive back in the days of the Corn and Soybean Initiative, but he did something that really stuck with me. He showed me something that I didn't know existed outside of my little patch in Iowa. Something that I don't know that I would have even experienced if I had studied agronomy in college. He showed me an agricultural community. How did he do this? Well, back in 2005, there was this little scare. We called it soybean rust. It was not acceptable if this disease was carried up to Iowa and affected our soybean production. It was devastating fields in the south, and we were going to be ready. Thankfully, it never made it to a field in Iowa, but ISU put together a group of agronomists to go see it. Darren was part of that group, and somehow I got the opportunity to participate in this trip. I thought it included many agronomists, but as it turned out, I was one of the very few, if not the only one on that trip, outside of extension personnel. Darren and the others on this trip were wonderful and made me, the outsider, feel included. We visited another university's facility. We visited fields. We got to look at soybean rust, and I even got to see the leaves through a microscope. It was pretty cool. And that was cool not only because it was cool, but because, remember, my education was not in agronomy or science. It was in graphic design. I didn't get to look at plant matter through microscopes. I didn't get to meet a network of people outside of Iowa that were all working together for a solution to a common problem, an issue that could affect everyone. There was not that sense of coming together as a community in anything I experienced in graphic design. There was a whole country out there included in the industry of ag. I had been exposed. My interest was high, and I was going to do something to connect Asmus Farm Supply with that big world of ag. Sure, Darren and I worked together on several projects after that trip, and we still look to each other as resources on projects that we are currently working on. But it was that trip down south that propelled me into who I am today. My role as Asmus Farm Supply External Relations was born. You probably have noticed that throughout my story, I talk about the people that have helped me along the way. People matter. Don't get me wrong, knowledge does too, but people matter. Jim Collins is an author of leadership books. In his book, Great by Choice, he talks about how people matter in our lives. He calls that who luck. We then tend to think of luck as what variables. Asmus Farm Supply changed in the industry because of a trip that happened to be available to me to see soybean rust. However, One of the most significant forms of luck that we can come into is not in the form of what, but in the form of who. In family business, for example, there's a significant amount of luck in whether a son or a daughter, or even a wife, has the right stuff to help lead a company to greatness. Jim Collins' research project Exploring Luck began with the premise that we live in an environment of chaos and uncertainty. However, the environment we live in does not determine why some companies or people thrive in the chaos and why others do not. People determine that success. People are disciplined fanatics. People are empirical. People are creative. People are productively paranoid. People lead, people build teams, people build organizations, and people build cultures. People exemplify value, pursue purpose, and achieve big, hairy, audacious goals. Of all the luck we can experience, people luck, the finding of the right mentor, partner, teammate, leader, or friend is the most important. Collins explains in his book that he found that all organizations or businesses or people are afforded relatively the same amount of good and bad luck. But Collins concluded it's not the luck, good or bad, that you get that makes you successful. It is what you do with that luck. One of his subjects had the perception and commented, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." Luck favors the persistent, but you can persist only if you survive. The way I believe you survive is to surround yourself with a great community of stakeholders in your lives that will take interest in helping you not only to survive, but to excel in whatever you choose to do. I not only try to surround myself with great people and organizations, I try to give back as much, if not more, than what they have given me. This is the philosophy I applied to the International Certified Crop Advisor Program. They gave me the tool in their performance objectives for me to pull together a team and learn what I needed to learn to be an agronomist. I partnered with many groups once I had that list because I knew I could not get the job done alone. And that is my message to this day. Partnerships and relationships are the key to success. When I'm given the opportunity to work with an organization, I hope I lead them to more meaningful partnerships than what they had before I worked with them. After my successful journey to learning and becoming a certified crop advisor, I felt I owed the program for helping me, so I started following newsletters and communications coming from the group. One day, I read a comment on how the CCA program was thinking that only agronomists with a college degree should be certified. What? That would take out many outstanding agronomists that had worked hard to earn certification. That would take out me. This is the perfect example of what is not acceptable. So I need to stop and make a little confession. If you've not noticed this about me yet, I sometimes get a little bit worked up when somebody says something that pisses me off. So I grabbed my keyboard and I fired off a note explaining how many great agronomists are second career individuals that worked hard to become successful and certified through the CCA program. I told them how I was a graphic designer by education, and now I was going to take the world of ag retail by storm. I hoped to do that through the CCA program, but if they chose to go the route of degreed agronomist only, well, I was going to take the world of ag retail by storm without them. Guess what? They must have read my note, because not only did they not make the program degree only, I got a letter from Joan O'Brien, now a very good friend of mine, an administrator for the CCA Board, telling me that she had gotten a note from the head office in Madison, and they felt, because of my graphics background, that I would be a good addition to their marketing committee. It wasn't too long after that I was elected to the Iowa CCA Board, and a few years after that I was chairman of that board. Then I was sent to represent Iowa on the International Board, and soon after that I was elected to the executive committee and ran the ranks from vice chair to past chair of the International Program. So getting prepared for this talk, I talked a little bit with John Lawrence at an Agribusiness Association of Iowa meeting we were both attending, and I asked him what he thought you all would like to hear about tonight. He said, talk about being at the table. You are at more tables than anyone I know, he said. Well, I beg to differ, because I think Wendy is at least at as many as I am. But I will tell you the reason for being at the table in today's environment is that if you are not at the table, you might be on the menu. And if you are at the table and you find yourself on the menu anyway, you can at least have a say in how they serve you, your organization, or your industry up. But really, I am at so many tables because of a lesson my grandma Dorothy taught me. She watched me a lot when I was younger, so when she needed to go somewhere, I sometimes went along. One day, around Christmas, we were going to an event. Grandma was wearing a beautiful bright red suit. When we walked into the room, heads turned. She was a sight to see. I was embarrassed. So I asked her why she wore this red suit and made everybody look at us. And she told me something I will never forget. She said, if you walk into a room and nobody knows you were there, why were you there? My success was not my own, but my ability to let people know I was in the room. In a good way, of course. To form partnerships, and I pushed to have the ICCA program an important voice with groups like CropLife America, with the Ag Retailers Association, with USDA and RCS, with the EPA, Office of Pesticide Programs, and with NASDA, which is the National Association of State Departments of Ag, and with members of Congress on the Hill in Washington, D.C. I was in over my head, but I was loving it, and I still am. I get to represent what I am passionate about. I get to tell the story of the ag industry. I get to meet and work with great people in a great industry. I get to explore every day what is possible when an industry works together. I get to walk into rooms and people know I'm there. Part of my task tonight was to tell my unique story of how I've transformed myself from graphic design major to respected leader in the ag community. And I've probably spent a little too much time on that. But another part of the ask tonight was to touch on some of what I thought were emerging issues in ag now. I mentioned earlier how we'd be hurt by less funding support for extension as well as research and development in the industry. On the flip side, I mentioned how we can get ourselves in trouble if we focus too much on science, technology, engineering, and math, and forget about the creativity that people bring to solutions for our issues. I shared with you how partnerships are important, and I would like to share with you one group in particular that I work with who have taught me a lot about dealing with emerging, or not so emerging, but definitely wicked problems that we face in ag. When I was the chair of the International Certified Crop Advisors Board, we were having a meeting with Barb Glenn, and at that time she was with CropLife America. She mentioned a group of weed scientists with the Weed Science Society that were working on issues of resistance management. The CCA Executive Board attended their symposium they were holding in Washington, D.C. They told the audience basically that if everyone would just follow the best management practices, there would be no resistance. They just need to educate agronomists and growers better on resistance management, and the issue would be solved. Remember what I confessed earlier about my tendencies to get a little worked up when people say things that piss me off? Yeah. That group of weed scientists pissed me off that day. What did they know about applicators and farmers? Did they even think about any of the hurdles that farmers face when making management decisions for their weed control? Did they think about the social or economic factors that farmers have to consider that weed scientists don't even think about when they live in their little world of resistance? Well, once again, everyone in the room knew I was there. I said something. It went something like, "You weed scientists can sit and talk all you want, but until you explore the hurdles that growers face in overall production plans versus just weed management, you are not going to get any closer to a solution by blaming the farmers for not automatically adopting all of your best management practices." My group from ICCA thought I was a mad woman. I thought I had lost it, and not necessarily in a good way. But shortly after I returned home from that meeting, I got an invitation from Mike Owen. That small group of weed scientists was going to expand their group. That group would now include a core group of the weed scientists, but also agronomists, social scientists, and economists. We have worked together for over 5 years on understanding the issues of resistance management and the hurdles farmers face when dealing with resistance. We all know that what is not acceptable is the loss of the effectiveness of our tools. We know it is not acceptable to allow emotional opposition to our tools that are introduced without advocating for the science behind them. We know it's not acceptable that people don't understand that these tools help us not only control pests, but reduce the risks of more dangerous control methods in producing safe and secure food. We know it's not acceptable for us as agronomists and growers to think that the solution comes in a jug. And we know that it's not acceptable to think that we can control herbicide resistance as individually. Once we understand the mobility of the pests we fight, we understand we need to get community involvement. The group of weed scientists really pissed me off that day, but they have come to be a group of friends that I highly respect. They are willing to teach an agronomist like me the science behind their thoughts, and are also willing to listen to and understand the concerns of other stakeholders dealing with resistance and what is acceptable and possible in working together towards a solution to the wicked problem of herbicide resistance. What is possible? Anything is possible if we work as a community of stakeholders to listen to all groups involved, even the dissenters and disruptors, and to work together to provide solutions that can be a win-win for all. Solutions that take into account the social and economic concerns of some stakeholders while considering the sustainability and safety concerns of others. Whether the emerging issues we are talking about is resistance management, water quality, soil health, or public acceptance of adopted practice to produce safe and secure food, those solutions must include open communication and collaboration of all stakeholders in the community, not just those that we see as friendly. I believe all things happen for a reason, and I received a call on Monday from a photographer in New York that I had the great honor to work with on a photo shoot. He called out of the blue on Monday just to reach out and see how I was doing. It was his intention just to keep in touch. We were talking about our lives since that chance meeting, and I told him a bit more about what I was going to say to all of you here tonight. I talked about what was possible and how we can't lose the creativity and the human aspect in our solutions. He shared with me something that he shares with the young students and people that he works with. Create the possibility. I want you all here tonight to allow yourselves to create the possibility. Once you create that possibility and give yourself the permission to work toward a goal, whether it is personal or professional, you can apply your talents and the talents of those stakeholders in your world to work toward an acceptable resolution of that goal. So I want to ask you tonight, not just the students in the room, but all of you, what are you passionate about? What are your emerging issues in ag? Where do you want to work in the industry? What is not acceptable to you, and what is your role in discovering what is possible? I encourage you not to go out and find yourself or your place in ag, but to create the possibility for you to accomplish whatever it is you want to do in ag. Thanks for having me.